Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avignoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World. Happy New 22.
Right? I love the
Ah,
way new rhymes with two.
22, new and 22. Yeah. Um, and it's just so much is swirling right now because I feel like we're still completing a cycle like over the next couple weeks.
Right. It's
Like
it's the post-mortem on the project, getting everything finished up and all the
residual.
reports done and document everything so you can close the book.
Yeah. So we were talking about, well, we have our course that we're launching on Thursday, the 6th, on Wonder Vision Boards, which is creating a whole vision board of creation for the phase to come, not just the year, but the phase.
Right.
From an energetic standpoint that covers all the bases and makes it so much more easy to consciously create. So we've been talking a lot about that lately because, we can. So and it's totally related to the topic we want to talk about today, because what we tend to do, and the habit is here, right, is we want to control things.
Right. It's all about the things and stuff.
And we don't think about why we want to control the things, right? Because when we have that resolved underneath controlling those things, then we can just create those things without needing that control, and things flow so much more smoothly and actually much more magically, much more, much more in the realm of infinite possibility than when we try to control that creation.
And the efficiency of it is incredible.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's just we don't spin our wheels in that control and in that anticipation and in that planning and in that what if scenario. It's boom.
Yep. So what we are aiming to help with and doing ourselves too, right, is starting this new phase, starting this whole new period this year with coming from a place of that wholeness, that completeness, to bring everything up to balance and completeness that we've been talking about all this past year, having to do with our Wonderland program and everything else, but we're sort of tying it up and we're making it very succinct into this beautifully packaged vision board program, where it's not just doing a it's not just showing up, putting some pictures on poster board and going home. It's actually first setting the stage energetically, setting ourselves at a vibration, allowing things to shift, and then creating from there, which is a much different exercise. And we're trying to, and we're very excited to help people, help ourselves and others to do that as well. But part of the challenge with that, right? And one of the things that I've been feeling into since last week, right, when we were turning, because what I did this year, when you and I talked about this offline, was it felt very just purposeful to, on New Year's Eve, focus on the things that, I could come to focus on everything in this past year, in this phase, even, right? To come to gratitude for it, no matter how challenging it appeared to be to the ego, right? So to bring all that into completion and all that kind of stuff, gratitude. So it's all that forgiveness circle we've talked about for the past year as well. And so it was like, okay, so forgiving, apologizing, anything that was, needing to be left there, allowing to come to resolution, allowing to come up to fully balanced and completed and whole. And then with love and gratitude, just let it back into the wholeness, right? Let it just sort of dissolve away. So I did that. Hi, Anne. I did that, focusing on letting go on New Year's Eve. And then on New Year's Day, it was like, okay, so now with this new ground,
right,
looking into the present and the future, like creating anew what's important for me to set the stage. So when I was doing that, I sit with that whole cycle of the stuff that we're talking about in the course, in the vision board courses. taking all those essences and using them as the foundation for our creation moving forward, which is the worthiness and trust and guidance, the forgiveness and gratitude, the self-responsibility for my creation and my reality, the acceptance, the gratitude for the shadow, adding the depth to the experiences that we've chosen, and and ultimately self-love and self-nourishment as my priority. So when I did that and I felt into it, this is a long story, making it longer, but when I really immersed myself in that, there was a part of me that said, that's just too easy.
Right. Right.
And I was like, what? Like, it was a surprise. And then feeling into that had to do with, okay, well, what feels easy? And I would feel into stuff and I could just feel this little tightness. Like, and so what happens, as we go along in this observance of ourselves, is we feel our physicality and how it reacts to what we're holding energetically. And it was like, why do I feel this slight tightness of, it's just not exciting enough.
Right.
If it's that easy. Good morning, Michael.
It doesn't provide that stimulus that the conflict and the struggle and the angst, anxiety, fear, all of that triggers. It skips those.
Yes.
And takes you right to the reward, and the body and the ego goes, wait a minute, I'm being missed out here.
Right. I'm missing out on the excitement.
Right. Where was my part in all of this?
Right. And truly, my part of the ego is creating all the drama, creating all of the conflict and the challenge. Right. Michael says emotions need to be fed. Right. Like, feeding into that fulfillment of drama and suffering and lack and limitation to overcome, and then say, oh, and again, it goes back to all we are driven by in most cases here in 3D set of dimensions has been negative reinforcement, which is the removal of negative stimuli. Right.
Right. Which is all focused on symptoms.
Right. So we go, okay, I'm going to limit myself. I'm going to make myself sick. I'm going to make myself limited. I'm going to limit my situation. Good morning, Yasmin. I'm going to limit my, I'm going to limit my finances or my relationships, or like, you name it. Right. So that I can create this drama of suffering and overcoming and the great journey, so that I have this awesome story, and then I'll feel awesome about myself.
Then I'll come back to the place of, oh, well, I always had this all along.
Right. And so we laugh when we say that, but it's so true.
Right. And we repeat it even over the smallest things. It's like we can magnify it or minimize it based on what it is we believe we need to accomplish in that moment.
Yes.
And it's a one process fits all.
Yes. And so, interestingly, a lot of people have come to this place of, and I agree, because I was there too, I've been there for a while, is a lot of people come to this place of, oh yeah, I don't have New Year's resolutions. I don't have vision boards. I don't blah, blah, blah. I just, staying present. It's like, true, except it sort of feeds into the idea of, oh, well, I'm just going to let it be all haphazard and let the ego create the drama, and it's not that that's a bad thing. It's that sometimes it just, we think it sort of adds to the lusciousness of the experience. Right. And if we stay clear, even on, okay, if I choose to create my existence in being, that's a resolution. That is a creation. That is an intended creation. And it can be that simple. And that's what we are focusing on getting to, right? Is that place of being and bliss in every moment. And when we trust that we're allowed that without the symptoms, without the struggle, without the challenge and the conflicts, right? Then,
without a process associated with achieving that.
yes, then we can just create.
Right.
And then to me, the fun really starts, right? So, you know, being that the Matrix thing just came out, the fourth Matrix just came out, you know, right before Christmas. Of course, I went to see it. And then we spent in my household, like the following week between Christmas and New Year's, going through all four of them, because we also have HBO Max, but I did go to the movies because I wanted to see it on the big screen the first time. So we watched all four, right? Which was good because it was a different perspective on a lot of things. And it hit me, a couple of things really hit me. So in the third Matrix movie, right, there is a conversation that Neo has with the Oracle that, you know, of course, I've watched all three of those movies. I don't even know how many times, but every time I watch it, a different thing hits me. It's like every single time, right? So in the third one, the Oracle and Neo are talking, and he basically says, you know, well, you just choose. Basically, he just says, well, you just choose to tell me what you, yeah, you're just choosing to tell me what you choose to tell me, or what you feel like telling me. And she's like, no. And his whole thing is, well, you don't, like, you're not telling me the truth. And she's like, I'm not telling you the truth. You know, I'm telling you what, you know, what you need to know right now.
Right.
And essentially it hit me in a different way than it ever has, because I've talked about this to clients and students so often, on when we start to see things from a bigger picture. And, you know, what we teach in Trinity is not to get the ego involved, which is what many do in the spiritual community, which is, oh, I have to add more value and tell you what to do, tell you what you should do based on what I see, which adds value to me seeing the bigger picture. Because when I see the bigger picture, sometimes I'm guided to just see the bigger picture and not say anything. Actually, more times than not. Actually, it's like 90% of the time these days, it's like, well, you see it, put it on a shelf, right? Because, and what going back to what Neo and the Oracle were talking about was basically is you're going to make the choice. Like you can't make a choice on that thing until you have the context for that thing, which will be in that moment. All you can do is make your best choice for right now. That's essentially what it boiled down to. And you're going to make the choice when you have the right context. And sometimes as we've seen this in our practice, right? And I'll tell you personally, I had a vision a year ago, maybe a little longer than a year ago. And I was told just to know this and don't do anything about it, which made my ego crazy. Right. Well, what does that mean? Blah, blah, blah. But I did not have the context. Right. And I did not have the context at the time, but the ego was like, oh, what do you mean? What do you mean to just know this? What does that mean? Does that mean this? And oh my God. And then the ego starts creating all this drama around it. And then it was like, I spent so much time culling that down into this focus. Well, and then when everything rolled out, it was transformative, right? And it was perfect. And yet, like, when everything rolled out, it's probably about 6 months after I got that message, the initial message, I was a completely different person because of all the other things I had been guided to resolve within myself. And when that came up, I dealt with it in the way that was a far more expanded, probably understanding and conscious way than I would have had I known exactly all of it when I first got the message. Right. And so many say, well, I don't want to know. Well, yeah, we really, we do. And we don't. There's a part of us that says, because that was just me. The message was from my expanded self saying, hey, this is coming. So stay on it, stay on your stuff, because you're going to need to have all this stuff resolved by the time this comes to, to head. And that's creating without the conflict. The conflict is where the ego goes, "Oh, but what about this? And what about that? And this could be, this could be this, and this could be that. And oh, and then you spend all of this energy about worrying and then get angry about stuff you don't have context for, understanding for, because it's not the moment to be active in that understanding. That's a challenging thing for us to understand.
Well, and it comes from it comes from those 7 essences, one of which is that trust and allowance. And coming to that place in there where it's like, okay, I have the worthiness, I have the gratitude, I have the self-responsibility, I accept the shadow, I have all these essences. So that takes that burden of away and just allows the allowing.
Yes. Yes. Because then, and how that happens that many don't understand is like this. We make decisions projected on by the ego from unworthiness all the time.
We attract opportunities to point out our unworthiness.
Right. So if we hold
our belief in unworthiness.
Right. And when we hold that, we will continue to add that to the drama.
Right.
And when we don't trust each other, ourselves, our expanded consciousness, the same thing, we will then create limitations that cause us the dramatic path to have to create to get to trust. Right. And funny because we use trust in this weird sense of, well, it's like letting go, right? Letting go, but it's really just knowing that I know the bigger picture, even if I don't remember it. And that's the whole not context thing right now. Right. And it's saying, I know the bigger picture. I know my expanded self. Why would my expanded self want to screw me over? It would not.
Right. And I have created this perfectly for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So why am I sitting here wasting time, second guessing, judging, attempting to control something that I've already controlled it at so much of a different level that it's unperceptive at that moment.
Yes. Yes. And I think back on this particular situation with myself, and it was like, I'm actually so grateful. Like that's what I was looking at on New Year's Eve. I was so grateful for that whole thing because it was such a testimony to that. And I was still on the edge, right? Every time it came up, it was like, oh, it would make me tense and uncomfortable, right?
Right.
And then it would take me a day or two, but then it would, the guidance would be like, yeah, stay focused on what's in front of you. Stay focused on what's in front of you, right? Okay, I'm going to put this on the shelf, right? And when it came to fruition, when the whole thing came together, there was quite an explosion, but I feel like it processed through so quickly. It was so exponentially faster.
Right.
And then it was like, oh, because of where I was and all the stuff just went zoom, 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 like just in resolution, like so
Which
fast.
gives you that breathless feeling.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, to me, in all honesty, I really like that versus the drawn out suffering of what if, and how do I
dissection and the picking it apart and the analysis paralysis that comes from it.
Yes.
And in my mind attracts more.
Yes.
You know what you focus, what you think about, you bring about. And so as you focus more on the dysfunction and the misalignment and the dis-ease and the whole thing, you attract more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And what we are, I feel like, well, and I've always said that part of the lesson I've set myself up for in this resolution life has been patience and trust, because the trust really patience comes from trust of it's all perfect. Right. And I feel like that's really what my biggest lesson was in 2021 was that patience and trust and presence to such a degree. And I feel like that's only a fraction of what it will be required moving forward.
Right.
But
Right.
now that I see it, now that I see it having happened, and I'm talking about collectively as much as it is personally, this is a collective thing as well. I feel like the more because this is how we quell the ego. Well, I did at that time, and we came out smelling like roses, right? So look at that. Look at how we did that. We spent a lot less energy worrying and projecting and creating suffrage and drama and everything else. And yes, it was uncomfortable when it hit, but it was fast, and it resolved in ways that I could have never imagined.
Right.
Because
Which that is the in my mind, the biggest reason to trust that is because it resolves in ways that you believe are impossible.
yes.
So you open up to all possibilities.
Yes. And that's the key. That's
right.
And that's what we're talking about in doing this old vision board class, because this is taking these energies of that worthiness. And that's what we're saying, the trust, right? The guidance, right? Had I not been dependent on my own guidance, I just would not have been able to trust, right? So those are very interrelated.
You get into that do loop of paralysis without these essences.
Yeah. So, because I kept on getting that, like when I would get the message, oh, like I see it, it's there. And then the ego would go, but, and then that would get the shh. Be calm. It's all good. Stay present. But. Shh.
Right.
And so, yeah, there was the little angstiness, but it was quick and it was much more resolved. So the next time this happens, which I'm sure it's going to, because it is happening collectively,
right,
it's to stay present in the, okay, I see this and I'm focused right here, right? That's our practice in remembrance. That's our practice in creation, is saying, okay, well, I am letting go of control, like the idea of controlling this, because it's really not, it's the idea of controlling it.
right.
And because everybody is us, right? You and I were talking about that on the phone, right? Everybody is us. And we can say that is where we get the idea of the concept of free will, which is the ego creates that free will of separation, and the journey of getting from separation, going into separation, and then back to wholeness, right? That big cycle. And so it's like, yes, it is a part of me that is just still going through part of the journey that it finds sexy and saturating. So, okay, well, I'm done with that part. So I'm going to focus on this, and this will come to resolution when it's time and when it's ready. And so then that gets to us to this level of the importance of letting go of our attachment, right? Which you and I've been talking about a lot lately.
Right.
To having context and understanding to everything, right? The attachment to creating drama. Well, because the drama that we create is all from the ego. It's all from the duality. And this is where we talk about shadow and coming into gratitude for the shadow. The shadow isn't bad. And the shadow is creating, the drama is the shadow, right?
Right.
It's all the shadow stuff. So it's coming to a place of saying, look at how I created that.
Right. And I honor the piece of me that created it because it wanted it.
Look, right. And look at how sexy and saturated and fulfilled. Like, I just ate the most satisfying meal ever by creating that.
Right.
Okay. And it's done.
And I allowed satisfaction on levels that I consciously wouldn't have allowed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Scratch that itch. So now I can move on. Now I can let it go. I don't have to do it again. And that is also, this is tying together also what we've been talking about all year about that sitting in something instead of pushing through it. Right. So this ties together yet another piece of what we've been talking about, which is, I'm going to let myself. And yeah, I had several times this year where I let myself saturate into the moment by the ego. And I observed, but I did it from observance. I did it from, this is what I'm going, this is, I will allow this, right? Until guidance said, enough.
Yeah, enough. Right.
And then, you know, I had forgotten about that. I had forgotten about a couple of those, but there were a couple of those moments and it was like, yeah. And the ego's like, but, you know, and it gets all revved up and whatever. And it's like having, you know, the most luscious cheesecake or, you know, Alaskan pie, whatever, you know, like the most luscious dessert you could ever like imagine. Right.
Right.
So your stomach says, okay, yeah, I can't eat anymore. I'm going to throw up. I'm like, whatever. That's the ego. That's the expanded self talking to the ego saying, okay, so we sat in this, we saturated ourselves in it. We enjoyed every morsel, every bite. We, you know, we allowed it. And now we can just say, I completed that. And it will never duplicate the same way because I allowed it to fulfill itself.
Right. Right.
Without attaching myself to it, which is a very different energy, right? And so those are a lot of big lessons that I realized that I gave myself this past year. And I'm really grateful for all of it because I feel like it gives me a very powerful foundation of creation in moving forward from a completely different level, a completely new level.
Right. It's that it's like we talked about in some work that we did with each other, and about how, you know, you're pushing a grocery cart and you just keep going in circles. And in order to break out of that into the spiral of this new beginning, it's like you've got to push the edge of that circle, and, you know, the sparks fly and there's resistance, and you think, oh, I'm not doing this right, or this can't be right. And then you expand that into the spiral, and eventually the sparks go away and it becomes the natural way to flow is
Right.
in that spiral. And I just see that we are pushing that edge of turning our circular cycle into the spiral pattern.
Yes.
Which I think is just, that visual to me is so freeing and expansive.
Yes.
Because the possibilities go from this tight, I know this, to, oh my gosh, now I can allow this.
Right. And it's funny that I noticed, it was funny. And good morning, Sandy. I noticed that. So I have this spiral on, which is funny. I've been guided to wear it. I hadn't worn it for such a long time. Right. And I had gotten it in Peru, and
Right.
it's in Peru, the symbol for Sachamama, which is like Gaia, Earth Mother, or whatever. Right.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. Like, look at the spiral, look at the ammonite, right? That ammonite
Right.
spiral, and
Right.
and the golden ratio, right? The
Well, I met the chambered nautilus as
yeah,
well.
yep. So it's the golden ratio. What's it called? I'm totally blanking out. Anyway, it's the basis in mathematics of how all flow tends to happen in our reality, which is a spiral.
Right. Which I find it so funny that, you know, science doesn't support, you know, what we talk about, but actually it does.
It really does.
It supports it in every way.
Yeah. What did we say in our conversation? I think I even wrote that. Yeah. Science is only valuable if it learns and continues to evolve. Right.
Right. Yep.
Because science that was science 100 years ago is completely different. Yeah. Like if we just stayed with the same stuff, right? It's just isn't relative to today. So that's part of the evolution of all this. So this is also part of our evolution of creation and consciousness and recognizing. So like in sitting in that space of saying, all right, I'm going to set myself to this worthiness, you know, to hold my vibration and worthiness and trust and, you know, guidance. Can't believe I
Enough.
it's like becomes so much part of me. So I have to pull it out now. Forgiveness and gratitude and self-responsibility and the depth of the shadow and the gratitude for that and the self-love and self-nourishment. When I hold myself in that space of and everything that I experience and everything that I create, when I just sat in that space without looking at any creation at all, that was where my body went, oh, there's a little bit over here and the ego's a little bit uncomfortable over there. Because what do you mean? There's no drama, there's no story, there's no challenge or, or limitation to overcome. Like, that's not fun.
Right.
And I was like, what? Of course it is. It's even more fun. It was trying not to do spoilers on the Matrix 4 for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but there was a comment about, painting the sky with rainbows. And it's like, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, we could just do that.
Right. 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 But, and I'm sure that the reason why the rainbows aren't there all the time now is because we'd eventually not see them.
Yeah.
Because we get accustomed.
Well, they really are there all the time.
All the
because
time. Exactly.
Spectrum of color all the time, right?
Right.
And sometimes with color blindness, we take away the ability to see part of it as the challenge, right? To still perceive without,
Right.
perceiving that way. So yeah, that's the thing to really look at in creating moving forward. And it's really, instead of it just being the experiencing, it is the creation. It is creating. That's what experiencing is creating something in this whole spectrum of duality, triality, however you want to call it. And doing so instantaneously that there's no path to have to create, path to get to that creation. It can just be.
Right, which puts the focus back on the value of staying and being in right now, in this moment, right here, right now, because really that's all there is.
Yes. Yep. It's creating this moment. So I think that pretty much sums it up.
Right.
What do we want to use for our clearing statement? I guess our clearing statement would have to do with allowing ourselves the remembrance that I allow myself the remembrance that everything I am, I'm worthy to, I trust that. I mean, everything now I'm worthy to, I trust, I listen to my guidance. I have forgiveness and gratitude for all that I've experienced and, all that kind of stuff. Take self-responsibility for my creation, the shadow, blah, 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 self-love, and from self-love and self-nourishment. Like, so we just sum it into this, the 7 essences there, right?
Right.
I allow instantaneous creation. Because that covers without context. It covers without drama.
It does.
It covers
without expectations.
Yeah, without expectations. I freely create instantaneously from that space.
Oh, I want that.
That feels really good.
It does.
Okay. All right, so let's do that. This is our little clearing / meditation session. So everybody take a deep breath, make yourself comfortable. As we close our eyes and we step out of separation back into wholeness and oneness, and we hold ourselves at the vibration where that is our truth. That is from where we exist, create, and experience. right. That felt incredible.
Yeah, it did.
So
It did.
as soon as we got out there, I heard it's the Fibonacci spiral. And I was like, oh, that's right, the Fibonacci spiral. That's what I couldn't think of, the Fibonacci sequence.
Right.
And then it was like, just align yourself in the Fibonacci spiral. And it was like, and then it was like a breath of freedom. Like, of
Right.
course, like we fight to stay in the circle. Why would we not, like align with that natural experience that we've created? Right.
Right.
And when I did that, it was like, I just saw everything start to just, resonate out. And I was like, oh, seeing how it all connected. And then it was like ripples everywhere, but like spiral ripples, and that's how they all connected. And I was like, oh, I think feel like I could expand my lungs 50 times as wide now.
Right. Right. And I saw back to the, being stuck in the sparks and everything when you're trying to expand into the spiral. I so vividly saw installation of the switch like on a railroad track that switches you from this track to this track. And it was like, of course, then you bypass all the friction and the fray. And it was just like, once I saw that, and it was just like see the value and have gratitude for the need for the drama so that you can then move on.
Right.
And it was just, that's when the switch showed up, and it was like, that's it.
Well, and in the spiral, it's like what we talked about, I think last week or whatever, but you can watch it. You can, as it's like, yeah, you can still see it, and you start to experience it from different perspectives when you're spiraling past it versus circling in the same thing. So it was a very freeing kind of opening. Yeah, that feels great. It feels great. So, and it's from that basis that we are focusing this Wonder Vision board course on, and it's fabulous. We're very excited about this, like everything else, it sort of comes together. So the course launches Thursday, and we're going to have 9 videos over the course of a month. It's going to be pretty much 2 a week. I think we said Thursday and Monday. We're putting out every Thursday and Monday will be a new video. And then once a week, we're going to do a live for any questions and whatever. You get a workbook, you get a template to do your vision board with. So a ton of stuff to really saturate and feel the lusciousness of creating from this space. And it's only $222 for 2022. And we'll put the link in here for if you guys want to join us. It is going to be such a powerful, I'm just so excited to see how it's going to turn out for everybody, since we're going to do this differently. Yeah.
Yep. Well, and excited to see how it unfolds, how they allow it to unfold in their lives and the changes that they bring about.
Yes.
Yeah.
And us too.
That's right.
So thank you for joining us. And we'll put the link in the description of today's things if you're interested and want to check it out. And we hope to see you there on Thursday. And if not, we will see you next time. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avagnoni
signing off with this week's Ascended World. Have a great one.